In this ICS Connects interview, I'm talking to Fiona Lang-Sharpe. She has managed sessions for successful online conferences for over 8 years, and she will share with us best practices and tips from her vast experience. So listen in and explore the future of exchange. Hello, everyone, and welcome to ICS Connects. Today, we are here with Fiona Lang-Sharpe. Fiona is a birth doula and an international board-certified lactation consultant, and she's also the Director of Communication and Master of Ceremony for GOLD. GOLD is a series of online conferences, the Global Online Learning Discussion, and in that capacity, Fiona has a lot of input for everyone in how to run successful online conferences and how to really keep your audience engaged. Welcome, Fiona. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Mathias. It's great to be here talking about my favorite topic. So it was an easy sell for me.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. And we're going to dive right into it. My first question is, of course, what everybody's asking right now. What are the ingredients of a really successful online conference or online webinar?
Yeah, you know what? I think a great platform is something that we always look for. Technology is really important today for us, our clients, our delegates, our speakers. So, but you want to find the right fit that's going to work for everybody. And we've been able to sort of master that at Gold, and we found the right sort of the shoe fits well for our customers. But I will say that you've got to know your customer, in order to make that work as well. So my responsibility is to get to know the customer, the delegate, and to get to know the speakers, because we want their experience by far to be, good, and we want them to enjoy themselves, because for each of our delegates, we want them to tell other delegates, and for each of our speakers, because we're always looking for speakers, we want them to say that they had a really good experience. So those are some of the ingredients, but on the other side, you got to have good customer service and folks that know how to work the technology. But, there's a lot of teamwork that happens there. So everybody has a role to play, a spoke in the wheel, if you like, in order to make that really roll well. And so we have lots of communication as a team, and we talk with our delegates and our speakers often.
Excellent. You say you need to get to know your customers. How do you do that? How do you get to know your customers if they are kind of like remote?
Oh, absolutely. So, there's the good old-fashioned telephone, honest to goodness. I know we all know about being online. And of course, I connect all over social media. I'm on social media every day, and I use it for the purpose of connecting. I've always had that ability to be able to do that. I've traveled throughout my life. My family lives in multiple different countries. So I've had a real desire and need to want to use that. But at the end of the day, if I can't connect through email or through social media, those types of things, I'm going to pick up the phone. It's not that hard today with using different apps like WhatsApp or Skype. You can find lots of ways. Have a real conversation. It's, and I love that part of my job where I'll phone up a delegate and they'll be like, "You're calling me?" "Yes, I'm calling you because I value what you think and I value what you care about what we're doing." Because listen, the customer at the end of the day is, they're our sales point, and they're going to bring more people to us. So I value what they see we're doing, and I always ask for feedback. I'm keen to always hear it, and I'm always willing to listen.
I think that's so important. And looking at your Facebook page and your social media, I can definitely see your delegates are extremely engaged with your product. And you can definitely see this is a very kind of like excited and engaged group. So you do something right. Or you do a lot of it right, for sure.
Yeah.
So you're an MC for a lot of those meetings. And I think kind of like going to that specific role, which is so key, I think, for keeping a webinar or a session engaging and relevant.
Yeah.
How do you actually keep speakers on track, and how do you keep an audience engaged during an online session or online webinar?
Sure. Well, I think there's two parts to that. For the delegate, you've got to know what they're looking for. So that plays into the role of understanding before they come in, what is the
Mhm.
product that they're looking for? What are they seeking? What are they yearning for? What are they missing? What are the gaps in their education? So that's really important because you're going to be engaging with them throughout the actual process live. So you've got to be ready and prepared to engage with them at their level and understanding. With the actual product and potentially the speaker, got to do your homework. You got to know those speakers well enough that you can hold them in a presentation for possibly an hour or longer, and you've got to have the ability to make sure that they feel confident. So I do a lot of coaching with the actual speakers because often they are nervous. Perhaps it's the first time. With what we're dealing with right now with COVID, is that we're dealing with a lot of presenters who have never presented online, and perhaps they've always shied away from it because they've really enjoyed having a face-to-face audience. I help translate that for them so that they feel like they are in fact right on a podium. And believe it or not, the feedback we get is always amazing. They're always surprised how well they felt it went and how they did feel that engagement throughout it. But it takes a little bit of convincing and a bit of coaching, warming them up ahead of time. Talking to them about their passion is always a good way to do that. And every now and again, if you feel like you're not getting to know someone well enough, again, I would just give them a quick phone call ahead of time just to chat with them. And it actually doesn't have to be about the presentation. It can just be a get to know you in the moment, because once you reach them on a personal level, I think you've won them over.
Excellent. That's really important. How do you actually work with the audience throughout a session?
So throughout the session, we have the ability to actually live time and engage with the audience in regards to what they're seeing and hearing on the screen. So they're learning. And so as they're learning, we're learning alongside them and talking about
Mhm.
what we're seeing. And so we have the ability to interject and actually present questions alongside the presenter themselves. It's like working a room, essentially. You're working the room in order to keep the momentum of the presentation on track as well, because you want your audience to be focused. You've got 60 minutes
Mhm.
to make sure that their attention is there. And the other things that we do is we will engage them with components that we suggest to the speaker. So if the speaker shows up with a presentation potentially that's a little bit dry, then again, we want to look for elements that are really going to heighten engagement with the delegate. That will include perhaps video, music, a visual slide with bright pictures, anything really that folks respond to emotionally, because a lot of it is about pulling on folks' emotion in order for
Mhm.
them to learn as well. If it's dry, we tend to sit back and not really engage as much. But if it's visually entertaining, if we can audibly hear something well, and perhaps a video, as I said, then that way the conversation flows better and we're able to touch point with them throughout the actual presentation.
That sounds to me that in an online environment, the MC is almost even more important than in a live environment, because you're really trying to prepare properly and anticipate some of those moments of keeping people having to keep people engaged. And I think a lot of it is in the preparation I hear, right? So that's
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we have things like poll questions, which can be
yeah.
very valuable. So it's not, sometimes you can call it an engagement question. Let's put it out there like that. So an
Mhm.
engagement question would be a pause in an actual presentation where the speaker themselves wants to get some real-time feedback from the audience. So they'll present their engagement question. Now, perhaps there's a real pause that happens and nobody responds. There's
Mhm.
nothing happening on your screen. So the idea behind that is that you have, again, coached the presenter, the speaker, into talking through what they really want from the audience. And of course, I will have asked them ahead of time, what do you want to, what would you like to see come up on the screen? They've got all the experience. So I'm just very point blank with them. What would you like to see? And then I can actually put prompts in there as well in order to, again, get the audience focused. But I love those touch points because it
Yeah.
gives that real feel to the audience and to the speaker themselves.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Speaking about the speaker, then,
Yeah.
what are some of the tips you would give to somebody that's does a webinar, does an online conference now, what makes for a good presentation for speakers? How would you tell them to prepare for an online webinar?
Well, one of the key things behind an online presentation is it always surprises our speakers is that they need more slides than they generally expect. So we have an ongoing conversation. And one of the reasons that we actually ask for more slides in an average presentation is because visually we want to keep things moving for your audience as well, because they're not seeing you, move around the stage or walk into the aisle or perhaps have props even, up on the stage. So it's a little bit different when you're, doing a live webinar. So the other thing is not too many words on your screen. You don't have to put big, long items of, detailed information that you can put into a handout perhaps, or give it to your audience ahead of time or after the fact. Either way works. So visual pictures are always going to be a good way. Visually, we learn actually 80% of how we actually learn is through our eyes. And so it's important that there are some really key visuals in that presentation in order to, again, grasp your audience. So giving, the presenter some of those key values really helps them. But, I'd say one of the best things that we actually do is we do a little bit of a dress rehearsal with them. So we'll bring them into the actual platform. We'll run through sort of what it's going to be like on the day. We'll run through their product. I'll be there as well. I will talk to them about what they're doing, which, listen, everybody loves to talk about what they love. And so that sort of gets them really engaged with, okay, this is going to be okay. And then one of the other things that I love to do is, of course, interview them about their actual craft or what they do in the field. And then that way it really gets them excited and they start to open up about what's happening. And to get them to really open up, all I have to do is be a little bit vulnerable myself, because that builds trust with them. So if I can be a little bit personal and a little bit vulnerable with them, then I draw them in and they start to trust what's happening. So it's like a fast track to a relationship. It's like the speed dating of emceeing and online programming. And but it really works, and it's healthy and helpful because we're all in this together. We're all working to an end goal of having a great product. You want your presenter to look good and you want the product to look good. So the key value is that you've got to mesh those together and you've got to do it well.
I think that is such important kind of like input and advice. And I think not just for online meetings, I think this is just in general. I think if we had this best practice about all our meetings, we would have much more engaging sessions in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very important. With all of that, like we usually learn from our mistakes almost better than from what we did right. Any blunders that you can share, things that didn't go so well in the, I don't know.
Well, there's always the blunder of leaving the mic open when you drop something on the floor, or you leave the mic open when the presenter is talking. So always keep your mic muted and don't get complacent. I think that's the key thing. If you're typing online, if you're typing a question to a delegate or to a presenter, check your spelling. I've made that mistake and it's a little embarrassing, So just make sure that that you're maybe typing it out somewhere else first on a little notepad and then putting it up online as well. So we've all got caught with little typos or putting the wrong speaker's name into the chat box, addressing the wrong person. It gets busy and we all make mistakes, but those are a couple of things that I can think of that I've definitely been caught in doing, and it's always a little embarrassing, but I try to make sure that we're always working hard to to get things spot on the day.
I mean, it also keeps you human, right, in a way. And
Totally.
I'm the king of autocorrect, so like
yes.
I can totally feel for you. This is very helpful. So we have the COVID-19 situation now, and you're MC at a conference, and you're running like you're with Gold. Gold has been around since 2007, so this is maybe one of the most experienced online conferences around. What changed this year? Like you ran your biggest conference, Gold Lactation, earlier this year. Do you feel anything changed this year in the midst of the pandemic and people being in lockdown?
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is it's a difficult time for a lot of folks right now. So there's a lot of emotion from a standpoint of, we looked at, were we going to lose speakers? Were we going to lose delegates? And in fact, neither happened. We grew,
Mhm.
which when we looked at it deeper, we realized that the need was there. And I think that's what we've looked at. So all of a sudden, there's a couple of things that have happened. First of all, very basic, we're on lockdown. There's a lot of folks that are at home and do have the time. So, they're investing in things that they find value in, which is their education, at Gold. And so for them, we work in sort of perinatal maternal child health. There's babies being born every day, in spite of a pandemic. That the world is still turning in that respect. So for a lot of folks, they were like, okay, you know what? I'm at home. I'm going to do it. The other, probably most important thing that we saw was the fact that people needed connection. They needed community, and they needed to be together. And our platform, because it's well designed and it's a well-oiled machine, was able to provide that instantly for folks that were seeking. And we were able to produce we've produced now 2 very large webinars actually on COVID related to the field of maternal child health, and they have been jam-packed with fantastic presenters, great early research, but nonetheless we've been really be able to create a community online where people have been able to find a little bit of relief, a place to have a voice, and a place to know that it's going to be okay, that we can come together, we can still be together, and we can continue learning together, because we're all human at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, I could not agree more. I feel like that's really the ingredient of a lot of things that we see right now, and a lot of conferences do quite well online, and webinars. People are surprised how many people attend. I think that's why the engagement part I really think is so important
Absolutely.
to get people
Absolutely.
that, yeah.
That's
Uh,
right. And things for now, I think are going to change, and
yeah.
we're going to need to have really good, solid online conferences, not just for the education, not just for the information, but for connection and community. It's going to be a way that as we move forward, there's going to be this option. And I think if we do it well, we'll build, a better way to be together and still be far apart. So it's going to be built into what we do in the future. There's no doubt about it. And we want to do it well so that we can continue to grow as humans and find ways to connect well and still educate.
Couldn't have said it better. I think that's a very good. Yeah, I think that's such a great way. It would be a great way to end it, but I have one more question actually.
Oh, okay.
Which is, you have this unique perspective, right? You're running this online conference for so long. You see what's happening with COVID and all of this, and all of a sudden we see everybody going into the online space.
Yeah.
Where do you think this is going to be long term? Like, you've seen how a conference can develop online.
Yeah.
Many of them are just dipping their feet in the water right now. Once the vaccine is found, if it will be found, hopefully, we'll
Sure.
be all back to live meetings. What do you think is the long-term outlook for these online conferences, online engagement, online webinars?
Yeah. Well, I'll always be the first to say, Matthias, that you can't take away from being in someone's presence. Being in someone's presence has a very unique way of other things that we learn and grow together. And, I need as much human contact as the average person. However, in light of what we're doing, for those who perhaps didn't really get it, for those who were shying away from it or said, you know what, that's not for me, I think that we'll be able to convince them very easily, because the product itself is selling itself. Once you come on to, and I see this all the time, honestly, we have presenters come in all the time that say, you know what, I've done a few webinars, we don't just do webinars here. You know, it's a full on real feel, real time experience. And so it changes what happens in your ability to learn, your feeling, your sense of belonging. When people
Mhm.
come away from our conferences, they will tell you hands down, they feel like they've actually been into a real space. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but honestly, uh, we've had midwives, lactation consultants, nurses, physicians. They've all said the same thing. I really feel like I was with people today and it felt good. And so for that marker, you can really, for conferencing, the feel good factor, that's what needs to happen. So I think in the future, we're going to see that online conference is really going to become the complementary to face-to-face. We'll probably still have events, of course, face-to-face, with maybe some restrictions in place, but online conferencing, I think, will have a very strong hold in what we do in the future.
That is a perfect note to leave it on. Fiona, it's been fantastic. I think what you really brought home for us as well is it's the human connection is so important. No matter if you're online or offline, this is all about humans connecting, humans learning from each other, humans sharing. So
Yes,
getting somebody engaged is still the key for all of those
absolutely.
things that we do. And I think you're doing an amazing job. And I
Thank you.
think your last conference had well over 3,500 people online. So I think
Absolutely.
that is a great sign. So thank you so much, Fiona, for sharing your valuable insight with everyone and with myself. And really excited for what's next for you and for Gold. And good luck with everything.
Well, thank you very much. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you.